Alright everybody, it's Sunday morning and we're going to do round the world update. We got a lot going on in the fish room this week, so we got a lot to cover. But before I get into that, take a look at my rubber lip pleco, dead center of the tank, sort of in the lower portion. See if I can get closer without it sliding away. It's very skittish. I've had this for about, I don't know, 4 years or so. It's one of the earlier fish I got back in the day when I first started keeping fish. And it's been in this tank almost that entire time. It's still really skittish, so to see it out on the glass like that was just interesting, and I wanted to make a point of it before we get on with business because we got a lot to go over. You will notice I've got 3 angelfish in the tank. They are kind of chill. They're hanging out. They're not attacking each other. The 2 smaller ones are not cowering for their lives in the corner. I've had a go around with these all week. I did a series of videos of trying to move them and get them sorted out. What I did was I broke down my 20 long, and we'll get around to that end of the room in a few minutes, but I rehomed all of the fish that were in there, and the only ones I'm having problems with are these 2 angelfish. One is kind of hiding up here. You can see its fins, but it's not real clearly visible, hiding in the leaves up there. So we still do get some aggression. This is still clearly the dominant fish in the tank, but nothing like we got before. This isn't even enough aggression to concern me. This is just this fish here showing dominance. Now that it's established dominance, all it's doing is sort of maintaining it. For the most part, I don't see a ton of aggression in this tank anymore. So those angelfish have been around. I've moved them into this tank. He was really aggressive with him, and by he I mean the big one in the center there, the original one that was in this tank, the big male. I took him out. I put him in my black ghost knifefish tank. I have tiger barbs in there. I knew I was taking a big risk in doing so. Wow, there's my rubber lip again. It turned out how I expected it to. The tiger barbs were nippy and began nipping its fins and stressing him out, so I moved him back over here. But apparently the trip to a new tank and a little bit of abuse sort of broke his spirit a little bit. He was not nearly as aggressive, and you can tell he's still in there sort of strutting his stuff and showing everybody who's boss, but he's not just straight up attacking them the way he was when I first put them in the tank. See, they're showing submission, and everything's fine. So that's what's going on in this tank. I also put a bunch of neons that were in the 20 long in here. If you'll notice, if you're very astute, I went from 2 neons. I now have about 8 of them in here. I'm not sure how many I put in, but I probably put in at least 6. So that is my 29 miscellaneous. Some changes finally happened to that tank after all these times of saying nothing's going on in there. Interestingly, I can say nothing's going on in my gourami tank. I've shot a few videos of this tank this week, and that's about it. I haven't done really any work on this at all, so we're just going to move right along. You're all very familiar with my gourami tank. Angelfish tank, more or less the same thing. I had a dead fish in here this week. It was a dead Serpei tetra. At the time I shot the video, I said that, these little small fish that you buy from the big chain pet stores, they buy them in mass. They're very inexpensive. They tend to die off pretty quickly, and when I say the inexpensive part, I don't mean the value of the fish, indicates the actual value of the life of the animal. But really inexpensive fish are really inexpensive fish for a reason. They're really easily mass-produced, low-quality genetics. It's not unusual for them to sort of just die from time to time. You'll just have that happen, and we'll see that in a moment in another tank where I do have a dead fish that I found this morning, but we'll get to that. What I failed to think about when I shot that video about the dead Serpei tetra was 2 days prior to that, my angelfish had spawned, and these 2 over here are the mated pair, the albino being the male and the mixed veil being the female. And when they spawned, they actually spawned on this Anubias leaf right here, which is the first time I've ever seen them do that out in the middle of the tank. So they were under assault from all directions, 360 degrees, top, bottom, and all around. And as a result, the female was just going nuts trying to keep the Serpei tetras away from her eggs, while the male was over there eating the eggs, ironically. So I suspect that maybe she actually got one of those tetras and hit it hard enough that she stunned it or killed it. And that could be why I had a dead Serpei in here. So there's a variety of reasons why I might have found a dead fish in this tank this week, but again, it wasn't anything to concern me. I haven't even done a water change since then on this tank. And again, other than that, we do have nothing going on. See, that's the male showing a little bit of dominance, a little bit of aggression towards the other male in the tank. That is sort of the third wheel. So, moving along, my Black Ghost Knifefish tank, for one thing you will notice it is now flat against the wall. Another thing you might notice is that I've got a dead glow light tetra right there on the bottom. This is about a half an hour after I've turned the lights on this morning. Haven't really got around to getting him out of the tank yet, obviously. I also wanted to leave him in there until I shot this video just to show you that I've got a dead fish in my tank. The changes to the fish room have begun. You can see I've got the tank straightened out so it's no longer at that roughly 45-degree angle I used to have, and you can probably see there in the left corner of your screen we've got some changes happening beyond the Black Ghost Knifefish tank. But first things first, we did move this tank this week. I was worried about when I slid it from the angle and straightened it up against the wall, I was worried about I might have broken a seal. That is a way to break seals in tanks, by sliding them, twisting them, buckling them, lifting from one end when it's got a bunch of weight in it. All these things could potentially crack a seal somewhere on your tank. I did not do that. I've not had any leaks or anything, so everything is good to go with that. My issue is that I put it too close to the wall. I can't now get behind the tank to put my liner behind it again, and you can see the wood paneling behind there. It's not terrible looking. And the back glass will probably get so grunged up with stuff eventually that I won't have to worry about it anyway. So we might get in there and do that again. I don't know, but I did about a 90% water change because I obviously had to take the water out of the tank before I could move it. I do still want to move it a little bit further away from the wall. Well, I guess we can't really see when I look back there. It's too dark. But I do want to have a little better access back there. I think my two hoses are pretty much squeezed between the wall and the tank, and that's not good. But the big change was moving it. I've simply moved it from that angle, and it is now flat against the wall. The reason I've done so is because we now have a single 125-gallon tank at this end of the room. I know a lot of you have been following along. A lot of you know I have this. But for those of you who pretty much only watch my Around the World updates, this is the tank I've been talking about. It's not the exact one I wanted, but it actually works out better than the one I had originally wanted. So as hectic as my day was on Black Friday, the end result was I was able, with the help of my friend, to get this tank in here and set up. That is full of water. It does have some lighting on it, but it's not the lighting we're going to be using. You can see I've got some stuff stacked up around it. I got some things on the floor. I got some lights. Plenty of video to come on this tank. I got video I want to shoot today, actually, about all of this stuff we're looking at here. So we're going to get started on that. Lots of video to come. Subscribe if you're not already. You don't want to miss this tank. It's going to be a good one. So we're going to move along. Again, we'll get to plenty more video on that tank. Over here, we've got my snail tank just ticking away. It's got snails in it. Nothing really to talk about with that one. My T-bar gudgeon tank. I've been tinkering around in there this week with trying to get the water flow the way I want it. Water circulation in a tank is very important, not only to carry dissolved gases around, but to distribute detritus and to keep your tank clean. This is not the kind of tank that allows broken down material to really get out of sight through a looser substrate like a gravel. This is a very sandy, fine bottom, so anything that gets in there is very visible, and you can see all the fish waste on the bottom right now. I've tried putting rocks in there. I've directed the water flow in a few different directions. I'm still not getting what I want. I'm still not getting the results I want. So in time, we are going to be in there, and we're going to be tinkering around with the water flow again. I think I'm going to move that rock in the back, and we might even move that plant in the back as well. I think that might be hindering my water flow. As much as I like the way it looks, if it's really messing the way the tank functions up, you know, this is definitely a case where function is more important than, you know, the visual aesthetics of it. I don't really care if I'm taking the plant away if it keeps the tank cleaner. So we will see. We will see what happens with this. We've still got some tinkering left to do to get that the water flow and the water circulation straightened out. So again, look forward to videos of that. Oh, my 125. Not a ton going on in here. I did a big water change where I was able to get a lot of the... I can't really stand where I normally do because I got the room as a wreck back here. I got everything all discombobulated from all the work I've been doing down here. Excuse me. So, 125. I did a big water change. I cut a ton of the floating water sprite out of there. And that's about it. What I've done physically to the tank is, if you'll notice how brightly lit the front and center of the tank is. A lot of you will remember I recently did a video where I showed you I put a little 2-foot fluorescent tube fixture over it. Well, I've since broken down my Brackish tank and moved that out of the way, so what I've been able to do is take the LED light bar that I had over my Brackish tank and I've put it front and center on this one. You can see right there I've got that little strip line. That still gives me easy access to open the lid, yet it gives me this fantastic light. I really like the light that is produced from that light bar. And one of the things I was looking forward to getting rid of the Brackish tank was being able to utilize that light bar for this very purpose. It actually spreads the light better than the little fluorescent tube I had here. If you'll notice, the fish goes into sort of a darker zone over here. It's less of a dark zone than it was with just the fluorescent light. And I actually didn't have time to move the light back. I normally keep this light a little bit forward, so the bulb is just about where the seam is, but the seam's not actually blocking the bulb, and that allows the light to come a little further forward in the tank. See how much better that corner's lit now? This corner is the same way over here. I keep this light just forward enough that the bulb itself is just offset from that center, hinge on the tank, and so the most of the light shines down, and it really lights this corner up much better. The only problem is when I'm in there doing any work and I lift the lid up, it sort of pushes the light towards the back of the tank, and I forget to reset it sometimes. So this tank looks a lot better. You can probably tell the color on my gourami is a lot better, the color on my loaches. I'm really hoping my Tenopoma will come over. If not, there'll be plenty of video to come. The Congos, when they swim in the front, look fantastic. They look amazing. And the reason is all the blue light that is in the LED. You can see through there under my drape that it's got a lot of blue in it. And I've said before, I've talked about lighting before, color is a property of light, not a property of the object the light is shining on. So these fish all have these beautiful blue colors in them. Even my Tenopoma, if he ever gets over here and swims out in front of this light, you'll be amazed at how much blue you can see in him even. And it's only because that blue is available in the light spectrum that this LED is shining on it, and it brings out the natural blues that are already sort of inherent in the animal itself. So let's see if he comes on over here and comes up front and center a little better. Look at those Congos. Wow, they just glow under that LED. I love it. Look at him. This tank looks so much better now that I've been able to get that in there. So I'm excited about that. The other big change that is much less noticeable, and you probably would never notice in 100 years unless I told you about it, is the Chocolate Zebra Plecos, as they're known. I'm not sure whether they're ancestor species or they're actually Plecostomus species. But my little, I think they're L240s, I want to say, maybe L270s. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember for sure. But they are little Chocolate Zebra Plecos. And I had 3 of them in my 20 long. When I broke my 20 long down, I moved them into this tank. I've not seen them since, but they're in here. So I now have my little bristle nose, and I have 3 little chocolate zebras in here now. So I should have 4 very small plecos or ancestral species, whatever you want to call them. I don't mind either way. The other thing I'm starting to get a little concerned about is I've been looking for my elephant nose fish that I have in this tank. I was trying to feed it specifically last night. I occasionally will put food directly in the bottom to ensure that the elephant nose gets food. Oh, that's one of my chocolate zebras right there. I don't know if you can see the little bit of movement down there. But that is my chocolate zebra, one of them. So we've now seen one. There it is right there. So we now know one is in there and still doing well. And I still have not seen my elephant nose since a couple of days ago. And I don't know if putting the new chocolate zebras in there have scared it and it's kind of gone to ground and is hiding. It's such a small fish that it could be dead somewhere and I would never even know it. It would rot away into a tank this size without really even giving me so much as an ammonia spike. So I'm starting to get a little concerned. I have not seen the elephant nose in at least a day and a half now. and that's unusual. It's not normally a reclusive fish. Again, I did just put those other fish in here, so it's quite possible that that's got it disturbed. Whenever you make any kind of change to a tank, you know, it changes things. Did you ever think you'd be able to see that much color in a Tenopoma? I just assumed he was just brown all the time, and the way you can see the shadows on him as he swims underneath of the plants that are above him. LEDs really produce a different type of light, or a different kind of light, than any other light source. I just saw some fin movement down here. Nope, that's another one of my little, I think that's my bristle nose down there. That's not the elephant nose either. So I'll keep my eyes open. We'll get to the elephant nose if we ever find it. Moving along. Ta-da! This is everybody's first look at Butterbean in his new tank. It's going to be a quick one because I really don't want to talk about this tank yet. We're going to do plenty of video of this coming up. When I moved him, there's no way I could move him without bringing some of his original tank water with him. So what I opted to do was begin treating the tank for the red slime cyanobacteria about an hour before I moved him in there. I put the treatment in, I got the air stone going, I got the tank sort of up and, you know, being treated, even though there was no bacteria in the tank. So when I moved him into the tank, the little bit of water I poured in there, if I transferred any of that cyanobacteria with him, it should have been pretty much killed off immediately. I've also got my 5 little Bumblebee Gobies in the tank as well. The only thing that concerns me here is that Butterbean is right at my doorway. So when I come in, I walk right past this curtain, and boom, I'm right in front of his tank, and it startles him. I used to have that issue with this tank. I know it's a little further away from the door, but if my snakeskin gourami was at this end of the tank, a lot of times me just walking in suddenly, and I'd hear thumping and banging as he bashed into the walls or crashed into stuff trying to get the hell out of the way, because, you know, I just walked in the room and it freaked him out. So I've learned to kind of enter the room a little more gently. Now that this tank has Butterbean in it, and he's even closer, I mean, I literally walk right past that curtain, or if the curtain's down, I sort of flip the curtain open as I walk in, and it throws the curtain right towards the tank itself. So I'm going to have to learn to kind of curtail my behavior a little bit, come in the room a little less robustly for the sake of Butterbean. I really would not be able to get to sleep at night if I knew I walked in the room and scared him. He bashed his head into something because he darted so quickly. He's really skittish fish for a puffer. They're usually really outgoing, and they can be fairly aggressive at times, and he just is not. He's really timid, and you can see he's just in the back of the glass kind of checking things out. His belly has been nice and white since he's been in there, so I'm comfortable that he's not stressed out. He did not puff up when I transferred him. So again, he didn't even really turn gray when I transferred him, so I didn't stress him out that badly. And he's got plenty of room, a nice new clean tank, so everything should be good to go with Butterbean. And there's everybody's very first look at him in his new tank. So again, subscribe if you're not already. There'll be plenty of videos on him and my Brackish tank, and talking about brackish water and all that good stuff coming up in the very near future. Almost there. I guess I should have straightened up a little bit more before I started shooting video, but there's not a lot to talk about with this tank. This is my crayfish tank. The crayfish in it have gone almost completely dormant. I never even see them anymore. I stopped even putting food in this tank about a week and a half ago. A lot of times I don't even turn the light on anymore. The only really reason I've been turning the light on is just to keep the plants alive. So what's going to happen is my new 125 is going to become a native tank. I'm still not 100% sure on the stocking list yet, but again, plenty of video to come on that tank as I put it together, and we've got a long way to go before I worry about stocking it, so no worries there. Probably what's going to go in it, at the very least, is going to be these 2 crayfish. Instead of releasing them back into the wild, I'm going to go ahead and just put them in the new native tank, and then worst case scenario, if I change my plans on stocking or anything like that in the springtime, I can release them or something like that. Nothing's permanent. Whatever I put in that native tank can always be changed. If I decide later, you know, next spring to do something different, we can always change it up. We are very late in the year, so it's going to be sort of limited pickings on what I can even put in the native tank. So again, plenty of video to come on that, plenty of discussion about that, and the crayfish here will eventually become part of that tank in some capacity. So that's all about, you know, that's about it for the crayfish tank. I've shot my final video on this tank proper. You know, it's still up, so I'm going to include it in this video, but that's all that's going on with it. So here we are back to the 29 miscellaneous. That completes the trip all the way around the world. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have subscribed if you were not already. Lots and lots of good stuff coming up. Lots of big changes happening. Lots of exciting things going on. You don't want to miss any of them, and if you're subscribed, you won't. So thanks again for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed. I know that was a lot to take in, but you're always welcome to watch it again. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.